Good morning. Today I'm gonna try to make a really quick video on how I make my kombucha each week. I'm gonna try to get this done. I just came in from outside. As you can tell, I have my outside attire on. The grandbaby's coming today, so I'm gonna try to get this done really quickly. Otherwise, he's gonna have to be in here helping me out a little bit because he won't want to be anywhere else. So this is actually pineapple kombucha. Now this was, of course, a lot fuller. We have been drinking out of this, but you can see some of the spent yeast in the bottom. And but I'm going to show you what I do. There's a few different ways. Some people use juice, some people use fruit puree, some people use herbs and spices in theirs, and some people use chunked up fruit. So I'm going to show you what I do and what kind of tea I use and how simple it is to do it every single week. So to get started, you want to have a clean pot, which I just cleaned this. So we're going to just make tea like you normally would. Excuse the dirty dishes and such in this kitchen. Dishwasher's down and that's not fun. So over here I have my zero water filter, and that's what I use. And I use a mason jar for measuring because I use 3 quarts of water. So I will just fill this up, and that's what I'll use to steep the tea. And then I will fill this up 2 more times whenever I actually go to make the new tea to set out for the next week. Alright, quart jar of water. Let's go right over here, and we're just gonna put it right in our pot. Now I use an organic tea. I use a black tea and a green tea. So this is the green tea that I use, and I think this is the only green tea that I've actually used. Puka, I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. And then I buy this English breakfast tea from Kroger. And I have found that these work really well. You can experiment with some different teas, but I think you have to use a certain kind that will actually make the kombucha. Now, one thing I do want to venture out into is making coffee kombucha. I've read that you can do that. Not really sure. I have some extra scobies, so I do want to try that sometime. So what I do, I make a gallon at a time. So I use 4 tea bags. Some people use less, some people use more. I guess it just depends on the flavor or maybe the intensity that you want. So what I'm going to do is we have our quart of water in here, and I'm just going to turn this on high, and I'm going to get it I'm going to get it boiling, and I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. Some people use white sugar. I use a raw sugar that's kind of a tan color. So I'm just going to put 1 cup of sugar into the water. So you can see this. It's just kind of a raw sugar. I don't know if that's focusing very well. And I'm just going to put 1 cup of sugar. I have tried less sugar. It didn't seem to do as well or taste as good. So we're just going to let that heat up, and we'll kind of stir that. Plastic. I don't think you're supposed to. Actually, I think you could use stainless steel. I do have stainless steel, but no other kind of metal. And nothing that's going to add bacteria, which is one of the reasons why we use filtered water. We don't want any other bacteria in the water. And so that I'm just going to get these ready. We'll open these and hang these. Alright, you can hear that starting to get warm. It'll start heating up a little bit more. Just going to take these, get them all opened up like that. All the strings together. And then I usually just tie them together like this, and I hang them on a cabinet. I usually just hang them right here until I'm ready to use them. Good morning. So Good morning. Today I'm gonna try to make a really quick video on how I make my kombucha each week. This will probably be I'm gonna try to get this done. I just came in from outside. As you can tell, I have my outside attire on. The grandbaby's coming today, so I'm gonna try to get this done really quickly. Otherwise, he's gonna have to be in here helping me out a little bit because he won't want to be anywhere else. So this is actually pineapple kombucha. Now this was, of course, a lot fuller. We have been drinking out of this, but you can see some of the spent yeast in the bottom. And but I'm going to show you what I do. There's a few different ways. Some people use juice, some people use fruit puree, some people use herbs and spices in theirs, and some people use chunked up fruit. So I'm going to show you what I do and what kind of tea I use and how simple it is to do it every single week. So the water's boiling. I just like to make sure, I did stir it that first time to make sure none of the sugar caked on the bottom. So just make sure that that's good. And then I'm gonna set a timer for about 3 minutes. I'm gonna let that boil just for about 3 minutes. Just kind of, I don't know, the directions say 5. I used to not let it boil at all, but I have been letting it boil for about 3 minutes, and I don't know if it's just to make a thicker syrup for it and get some of the water off of it is the only thing I can think of would be why you would do that. But let's go ahead and get some of the other stuff ready for when this tea is ready. All right, so our timer is almost, we've got about a minute left, so I'm gonna go over this really quickly. So this is the kombucha tea from last week. Actually, what is today? Today's Tuesday, so this is actually from the week before. I usually make my kombucha on a Thursday or Friday, but because the temperatures dropped in the house, this was actually at about 64, 68 degrees for a little bit, and so it won't ferment as fast. So right now it's between 68 and 72, which is not super ideal, so it will make slower, but in the summer months it will be up in the 80s, and that makes faster. So I've just kind of kept an eye on the top SCOBY. It usually will form another one. Now it's not as thick as what it had been because I did take some of my SCOBY out. It's just been forming more and more and more. But this is actually just the green tea because I didn't have any black tea. So you can actually do just green tea. So we're gonna do green tea today and the lemon ginger echinacea. And these are the bottles that I buy. You saw earlier. There's our timer. Go ahead and shut that off and let that hang out right there for just a minute. Actually, let's go ahead and get these in here. So we're just gonna drop them, kind of hang that over the side. Just gonna scoot this back here, and then I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes. And so our tea is going to steep for 15 minutes. So you do have to plan a little bit for this, but it's not bad. So these are the flip top locking bottles that I buy. I have 12 of them so that I can make a batch and then have a batch in the fridge, and hopefully we go through enough of it. I have 2 over here on the counter that I need to wash because I only have 4 right here, and it usually makes 6 bottles. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the SCOBY and 1 cup of this out, and we're gonna save it to set it aside. Just like when you make yogurt and you have a starter, you're gonna have a starter for kombucha as well. So let's do that now. All right, so here's our kombucha. Now we do wanna have clean hands. Some people don't touch their SCOBY at all, but I do, and that's just how I do things. So this thin spot is a new one, but this is all SCOBY that has made my kids think it's really gross, which it does kind of look gross. So if you look in here, you can kind of see stuff floating around, and that is some of the other just little pieces that are forming. But we have our SCOBY set aside, so now we need a cup, and I always use my glass measuring cup because that does get sanitized better in the dishwasher when it's working. So we just want a cup. Now when you use black tea, this will not be this light. This is really, really light because it's green tea. So we're gonna just set that aside. And so now we have this that we're going to add our juice to. And this here is wonderful. These are stick-on temperature, what is that? A temperature sticker? I don't know what that's called. So let's add our juice. Now we don't add this whole bottle, we only add 2 cups. So this actually gets used again. We're gonna mix it up good before we open it, and then I'm gonna add 2 cups of the lemon ginger echinacea to this. Okay, and then probably make another batch of this because I've got the juice and I don't want it to go bad. All right, we're just gonna give that a good stir. Okay, so we're ready to bottle this up. We're gonna go ahead and bottle this up. We've got our SCOBY out of our big jar. We've got a cup of our starter out, and now we're going to fill these. Now, a funnel is a good idea, and so is a 2-cup measuring cup, especially if you fill these up. I figure I have found that 2 cups does really good job. Now keep in mind, I do have to wash those other 2 jars. All right, quick battery change. Let's get back to it. And this is our 2-cup measuring cup. So all I'm gonna do is just pour, after stirring this up well, 2 cups in here. And then carefully fill our jar. I don't cap these yet because sometimes I do go back if I have some left over and top them off a little bit more. You want at least an inch or 2 of space from the top so that the kombucha can ferment and have that extra room. And because I did not buy all these bottles at the same time, I bought 6 and then 6 later. I'm pretty sure they're not all exactly the same size because they fill up differently. Either that or I am just not very precise on measurements. Alright, let's get those other 2 washed. Okay, so I'm gonna let these cool down just a little bit. They are a little warm. I don't think they're super warm, but you don't want hot water because it will kill the bacteria in your kombucha. So the one thing that we do whenever we have these and we're done with these, we rinse them out really well because some of the spent yeast can stay in the bottom and you don't want that to get and stay in there because, as you can tell, these would be a pain to clean. So you could either clean these with soap and water, just be careful of the soap that you use, or you can do a good rinse with some white vinegar, and because that's what I do with my big kombucha jar. I usually just rinse it with white vinegar and water, and that makes it good. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill these up, and we'll have our 6 bottles of kombucha. So this is what I'm talking about, having a little bit left. So I'm going to pour the rest of this in my measuring cup, which is about a cup. So I have a cup left, and I'm just going to add it to these jars. And I'm just going to add it to these each one a little bit, go up and to where there's an inch or two of space left.
Alright, now we just cap it and we set it on the counter. I usually set these on the counter for about 3 days or so. You'll start to see them get bubbles in them. But it's totally up to you, and then you put them in the fridge and that will slow the fermentation down. So we just have a few more minutes for the tea to be steeping, and then we're going to make up our new batch. And so I'm going to go ahead and put some white vinegar in this and get this rinsed out. Alright, so I just add a splash of white vinegar, not a whole lot, and then just some water, and I'm going to swish it around. And that's what I do, as long as it's, you know, clean. Otherwise, that's all I do each week. So now that is ready, and our SCOBY and everything is set aside. We're about ready for our tea. So while we're waiting on that, I'm gonna go ahead and put 2 quart jars, so 2 quarts of filtered water, into our new jar, or into our clean jar, for our next batch that we will ferment this week. And always make sure you have plenty of water in your filter. It's gonna be close. Alright, the tea is done. So, I'm just going to squeeze the last little bit out of these on the side of the pan. Cut the strings off and put this in my compost. So now we have this mixture of black and green tea. So I'm just going to pour it into the water that we have here. So now we have our sweet tea, and I'm just going to give it a little bit. One of the reasons why I like it, especially whenever the water is kind of cool in here at room temperature, is this will not be very hot, because you cannot add your SCOBY to hot water. So if we look at the temperature, it looks like, if I can see it, it's getting up to about 86 degrees, and that's okay. I don't want it to go above 90 because I will have to let it cool. Now in the summer, sometimes I do have to let it cool down because the water in the house is not as cool as it is right now. But it looks like I can add it. Just kind of make sure it's not going to do anything funny. So we're going to go ahead and add our SCOBY. Make sure your hands are clean. This is all I've been doing, so I'm good. So we're just going to pick it up and put it back in there. And then we take our starter tea and we just pour it right on top of it. Now sometimes your SCOBY will look like this, sometimes it will be a flat disc and really pretty. This will work, so I don't have to worry about that. So you don't want to tighten this completely up because it does need air. So I just have some cheesecloth doubled a few times because I do not want any fruit flies or anything in here in the summer. And I just put it on there like that so that nothing can get out. I think it looks kind of cool like that, and so it just sits over out of direct sunlight on the counter and ferments for a week to 10 days or so. So this is where the kombucha lives for right now. My plan is to actually, we're gonna put some cabinets in on the other side of the kitchen and have a drink area for coffee and my kombucha. So that will be much better, because right now it's kind of cluttered, but this is what we just bottled and it's fermenting here. This is the new tea that's going to be fermenting, and this is what you end up with after fermenting kombucha many times. These are all SCOBYs. So this is called a SCOBY hotel. I do have one of those on here as well because I was making But it is, I think it's messed up because I don't know, well, maybe it's like 68 to 72. But as you can see, there's bubbles in here. I just leave this out. I do give it some tea occasionally, but not very often. And they stay good. And I can make more, I can start more kombucha tea if I would like to. They can hang out there, or I can try some coffee kombucha. I hope you enjoyed this video. These will be done in 3 to 5 days depending on the temperature in the house. You can test them, you can taste them. You can always test and taste this and make sure it has the kind of wang that you want, or the they say like a little spark on the tongue that you want. So you can check it, or like me, if you get into a good routine, you kind of know. And I love kombucha. I love making it. It's good for you. It's a good alternative for soda. So if you want something different and you want an alternative for soda, this would be a good alternative. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. You never know what kind of projects we're going to have, especially this coming year. So don't forget though to be lovely lights today.